guys. Well, welcome back to the Steap Talk podcast. I got some fantastic responses regarding my last video, and I am just so grateful for everybody with your kind words. But you guys really wanted some tea, and so I do have tea for you guys today. Um, I just want to say, first and foremost, that of course, right, I am speaking my opinions that are based on my personal experiences. I am not here to defame anybody. I talk a lot about the Amway Corporation and the various different lines of affiliation, the tools businesses like Worldwide Dream Builders, uh, LTD, which is Leadership Team Development, URA, and various different MLMs as well. And BWW. I forgot about BWW. Anyway, I'm not here to defame anybody. I had a very negative experience myself, and I speak a lot about the different experiences that other people tell me about as well. That being said, though, if you're over the age of 18, you're a consenting adult, and you want to join any of the different lines of affiliation or the Amway Corporation, by all means, do what you're going to do. I would just highly suggest listening to some of the stories that are being told because it might just give you a broader scope and help you make different decisions for your life. But again, you're an adult. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You guys, it has been insane. So I know before with my previous episode, a lot of time has gone by, right? And so, with all of the different things that have happened, I've had a lot of people reach out to me. And one of the most consistent things that I am seeing across the board are the different ways that the upline are being hypocritical within their organizations. So, I kind of want to go through the cardinal rules. From my understanding, every single line of affiliation had these same cardinal rules. Maybe they didn't refer to them as the cardinal rules, but in worldwide, that's what we call them, the cardinal rules. You can't say, hey, I'm having a bad day. You would literally have to pretend that you were having the best day ever when you're talking to crossline or downline. They would say, bring all the negative upline, right? Then they would say, never embarrass your upline, downline, or crossline. So you can't make little jabs or jokes at people. They would later on actually determine whether some things that they were saying were embarrassing or not. It was interesting to see how one thing was a joke when one person said it, and then it became offensive the next time. Then it was never mess with anyone's money, meaning no borrowing money, no suggesting that somebody invest their money elsewhere, just any sort of way that you could impact their money, their business, right? The next one is never mess with anybody's spouse. We all know that means no cheating. And then the last one is never do anything without consulting upline first, right? So, why are these rules so negative? Okay. You would think that having these kind of rules would be a good thing. And at first, I thought the same thing. But I also see a lot of the things that were happening. And let's just be real, a lot of the upline were not following these same rules. Now, please understand that I take everything that I hear with a grain of salt because everything is alleged to me, right? These are things that people have heard maybe from another third party source or maybe things that they have experienced, just different things that are being told to me. So I just like to say, very clearly, these things are being alleged. Okay. I cannot confirm a lot of these things. And a lot of these things are just personal experiences that people talk about. Right. So, one of the biggest things that I can remember from an interview that we did, actually, gosh, it's crazy to think a couple years ago now with Bree, she told us about being sexually harassed by a cross line, and her upline quite literally blamed her for it. Like it was a very innocent encounter. This guy continued to harass her. And when they approached her about it, she was going on to say, hey, this is making me uncomfortable. And they were like, no, actually, you're the problem here. That was crazy. Another one, if you guys remember Ariel and Ksenia, the Brit Worldwide couple that their upline did everything they could to try to keep them from being together while they were simultaneously also dating Crossline. I'm happy to say that Ksenia and Ariel are married with a baby today. So that's fantastic. But it's the fact that their upline was dating Crossline, but not allowing them to be together. It's a very interesting and weird situation. Really all the things that I've seen recently as well with we know who these gemstones are. Like, let's be so for real. So as far as I know, the club owner is no longer affiliated with the Amway Corporation or Worldwide Group. Um, More to come on him later. Oh my goodness. But the reason why I'm bringing him up is because his now ex-wife has publicly announced that she is dating one of her downline platinums. That's crazy. From my understanding, she helped plan the bridal shower for this guy's now ex-wife. I believe she, if not just attended the wedding, she may have even been in the bridal party. She was like, these were her best friends. And now she's now publicly dating this guy. And this is something that has actually been confirmed. I have screenshots from Instagram that people have sent to me, and it's absolutely insane to me that that this is acceptable, that this is allowed. I mean, please understand, if this was not something that was happening within Worldwide Group, I really wouldn't bat an eye at it, because I understand, let's be so for real. The real world in relationships and dating can be kind of messy. I mean, if things are done ethically, I I mean, either way, it's none of my business. But these are people who put marriage on a pedestal. These are people who say they live well within their Christian values, right? And they're preaching these things onto us and criticizing us, their downline, for doing the same things. So that's where I find it appropriate to talk about these things. I have had people mention that they don't love that I talk about people's marriages. Hey, listen, if you want to skip right on past this part, you're more than welcome to. But the amount of times that I was criticized for having been divorced by these same people who are now getting divorced, yeah, fuck those people. Okay. It's just crazy to me. But you know, the things that I've heard about this particular gemstone, the club owner himself, the things that he was up to is pretty disgusting. I've heard a lot of the cheating stories that he's been a part of. I have heard from people who were involved in these different scandals, and it's not just the fact that this guy selfishly ruined his own marriage and the life with his own children, but he was impacting not just his downline and their marriage or their relationships, but their whole business. I mean, can you imagine how many people were impacted because this guy was selfish enough to cheat? From my understanding, there were many women. I don't know how many, and I can't confirm how many of them were married or in relationships, or who they really even were. I can just talk about one different story that I had heard through passing. Um, and it's heartbreaking to hear these things happen. But also, when it comes to the way that downline are speaking to us, they were also talking about the way that we were spending our money. And I definitely want to make sure to mention, if we can all remember, Lisa, who had been in the organization for, I believe it was 30 years and had just left. She told us about this scheme that her upline was promoting that lost different business owners thousands of dollars. I mean, her diamonds were the only diamonds that I had ever seen being used as an example to say, this is why we don't cross line. Um, it's just insane to me. But it's not only that, right? There are also like bits and pieces of like mini stories that I'm hearing from other people through passing, is that the upline, they were gambling, they were drinking, they were going to strip clubs, the men were bragging about cheating with the boys, right? And they would be on stage preaching modesty, trying to separate men and women from these different parties that they would have, or the different functions. And they would really preach their traditional Christian values, but they're also simultaneously going out, getting drunk, and cheating on their spouses. Okay. So rules for thee and not for me, right? That, it seems as though that's the rules that they live by, and it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating as well because of the amount of control that they held when it came to dating. And I heard this story from so many other people, just this different same account where they would be told, like, hey, if you're going to date somebody, make sure you're bringing them through the process. And they would be encouraged not to date at all. But not only that, they had to get like permission, even to just date outside of the business, let alone permission to date anybody inside the business. My upline, their daughter, famously dated a cross line and would end up getting married to him. And yet, when other people wanted to date each other in the organization, to consenting adults, right? They were basically told like, hey, no, you can't do that. Like, I'm sorry, what are we talking about here? If two consenting adults are interested in each other and they want to get to know each other, who the hell are these people to tell you, yeah, sorry, you can't do that? And here's the thing, this isn't a boss and employee situation. These aren't coworkers. Okay, this is a voluntary organization that these people are a part of. This is not, hey, that's my manager. My manager wants to date me, which is really funny because I also saw there's this one couple where like the woman ended up being pregnant, and not too long later they would be married. Like nobody that I knew that they were even dating, and that's fine. They're allowed to be private, but it's crazy how quick it went from she's pregnant, now they're married, and realistically, how long had they been dating each other? And yet again, people are not allowed to date. Like it's actually crazy. But not only are people being deterred from dating each other, they're also like, for example, when couples walk in together, but they're not married, they will be encouraged to break up with that person if if one party is not 100% sold. They will talk to the party who is 100% sold in and say, hey, listen, this person's not good for you. That was the situation with me. Actually, I walked in with a significant other. We call him Luke here. And basically, they would tell me, like, hey, we see that you're a lot more driven than Luke is. And obviously, it's time to pull the plug. Now, to be fair to Luke, that was probably for the best. I'm going to be very honest here and say I was a terrible partner. He and I should have never been together. I was toxic. I was awful. This is a good person. Luke, honest to God, dodged a bullet. They like saved his life, basically. Okay. I always wish Luke the best of luck, but that's just one scenario that I can personally say that I was involved in. Now, on the opposite side, if a couple walks in and they're not married, but they're both equally like dedicated to the business, they are heavily encouraged to go get married. Jess talked a lot about this in her episode when she talked about them pressuring her and Robert to get married. What's interesting about them getting married as well is that outside of myself, who was their downline, and one upline who was like in and out, nobody else attended their wedding. Like these people are pushing them to get engaged, pushing them to get married, and yet none of them were even there to be supportive. I mean, these were people we really thought were going to attend each other's weddings. We were going to be the best friends for life, and they couldn't even show up. That's crazy to me. I don't know. It's frustrating to see. But another thing as well in regards to dating and like having permission is when it comes to like maintaining the boundaries between men and women to like prevent people from crosslining. I can remember a very like embarrassing situation for myself when I was involved. Again, you guys, this was like 10 years ago. I had like a super minor crush on a guy who was like very crossline for me. We would see each other at like events, and at some point we would see them at like board plans and things. And I can just like, I remember very distinctly this one moment, and it happened a couple of different times. One in particular, where this person and I were speaking, and I can't even remember what we were talking about, but it was at like a larger incentive party when multiple different lines of sponsorship were getting together, and this person being dragged away from their like with their upline. It was so embarrassing. Now, please understand, I don't think the feelings were mutual. I don't think that this would have gone anywhere. Clearly, it was not meant to be. But it was just really interesting that we, as a male and a female who were both single, like couldn't even have a conversation because I don't know what nefarious things they thought were going to happen. I don't know. It's interesting though. Like people couldn't even really be friends. You couldn't have a really in-depth conversation. And I've talked about this time and time again, but I'm telling you, we did not know these people because of these set rules. Because when it came to passing like don't pass negative down line or cross line, you had to have very base level conversations with people like, hey, what's your favorite color? Who brought you around? You couldn't even ask people, how long have you been around? Because then that might potentially impact their business and scare people away from being involved if they know that you're nobody and you've been around for 10 years. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize how unhappy everybody was. And you would think that this was the happiest group of people. I mean, you would walk into a room, right? And usually this is somebody's living room, and you'd have these black chairs put forth by everybody. In fact, we had to bring our own black chairs and we would have to carry them with us. It was really crazy. But we would be sitting in this room, right? And you'd have like maybe 3 rows of like 5 chairs, and they'd all be full. And we'd have all the newest people at the very front and all the older people at the back, right? And we are supposed to be just cheering our lives out. We are so excited to see the same talk that we have seen sometimes 100 times. And that's not even an exaggeration. It's probably an under exaggeration how many times I heard that same talk over and over again. It's horrendous. But we would have to pretend to be so thrilled as if we were living the best life that we could, that we were all very, very successful because we wanted to create what they called a sponsoring environment. And it's really cringe to think about as well. I do recall that the gemstone, the club owner's now ex-wife, she would tell us, I don't care if you heard the same joke being said 1,000 times, you need to laugh like it's the first time you heard it. I'm sorry, what? Oh, God, it's just so cringe. It's so cringe to think about. But that's the environment that they laid out for us. And that's just kind of what we accepted. And now I'm like talking to all these different people who were in either different lines of sponsorship or different lines of affiliation altogether. And they would talk about how like sad they were and how they would be so depressed or because they're so broke or they're miserable and they would just have to put on their fake smile. Yep, I'm so excited to be here. A lot of the times it's because you're having financial difficulties as a result of the business itself. But we had to pretend that we were all very successful. In fact, there were a number of times, and in fact, it almost every time the club owner himself spoke, he would say, raise your hand if this business has positively impacted you or got you a better job or whatever. And everybody would raise their hands just instinctively. I can't say it at all if this business was positively impacting me. Now that I'm here 10 years later, I can tell you that it wasn't. It was negatively impacting me. I had like negative balance in my bank account because my ditto just went through. And I was working 3 jobs by the end of it, single parenting to then two, at first one child, then two. It was devastating. And you would think about how much money we're putting into it, right? Like, back, this is 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was spending as much on my what they call ditto. It's basically your monthly reoccurring purchases through the Amway website. I was spending as much on my ditto as I was with my rent, which leads me to my next topic that was very hypocritical with them is they would condemn mortgages. Now that I have a mortgage, I'm actually very grateful that I am no longer a renter. A lot of that is actually just because we have more control over our home. If my kid breaks something, it's on us to replace it. I don't have to go through the anxiety of, hey, landlord, my kid broke a window. Can you come fix it? Or whatever. That's, a bit of an exaggeration, but it's true. Or, my washing machine doesn't work anymore. And sure, that does come with its own challenges. You have to have money set aside to be able to fix these things, or you have to look into it to be able to fix these things. God bless my fiance. The guy has he's become a carpenter, a plumber. He's fixed washers and dryers. I mean, the guy is a jack of all trades at this point. Thank you so much to you. But ultimately it's ours, and not only is it ours, every mortgage payment is building up equity, which means over time, if we decide to sell the house, we could also have more money than we put into the house, right? So when it comes to mortgages, I remember the football player guy would constantly say, mortgage is a death grip. Like, it's going to be one of the biggest debts in your life, and you're going to live to regret it. They would heavily encourage us to rent. Now, please understand, if you are somebody who chooses to rent, that is okay. I am not condemning your choice to be a renter. If you still live at home with your parents, if you have roommates, whatever your living situation is, please understand I respect where you're at. So one thing that they were heavily preaching was, if you can rent with, they would put homes together. Oh my gosh. This is something that even different lines of affiliation altogether thought was absolutely crazy. But they would put together these like worldwide houses. Single males would live together, single females would live together. And my own downline was in one of these roommate situations. And it's crazy to me the rules that they were living by. I mean, if they would also look at places specifically where they had like a bigger space for what we called board plans. A board plan was when we brought people in, they would see our speaker, which was usually our one of our upline males, would come and they would quote share the plan. Basically, they were just repeating what their upline had told them, how much they failed in life, how much better, their rags to riches stories, whatever, right? Let's be so for real. A lot of these people were broke themselves. But they would look for spaces where they could have these, especially if it was what they called training. This was when you had no new people showing up. They would literally just go over the fucking cardinal rules all over again. They would go over the uh, ABC plan or whatever, basically, in a nutshell, telling you to go talk to people or you're going to be broke. And putting in your money for your ditto every month, otherwise you're going to be broke. Um, but the cross line would not allowed to be there. So they would either have to lock themselves up in their room, or the more preferred option by upline was that they were to actually leave the house to go sponsor people. It's so crazy to me that they live by these rules. But not only that, they had to live by the cardinal rules. They couldn't cross line. They couldn't talk about each other's businesses. They couldn't get ideas from each other. They really had to live these very like surface level lives living under the same roof. Like that's crazy. I remember my roommate at the time, her and I are still very good friends. Her and I had been friends for a very long time, and we talked about a lot of things. I mean, we had healthy boundaries, sure, but I mean, we would talk about our days. We would, I cried to her so many different times because of what I was going through. My son loved playing with her dog, and this was back when I had one child, and the situation was great. I mean, when we talk to each other today, we have such a positive experience living with each other. Now, on the opposite side, we have had negative experiences with roommates, and some of these people who shared these living spaces, I would love to hear your story. Please come share. But I can't imagine that it was always a graceful situation living with these people. I mean, you've got three people who barely know each other, who all probably have all different personality types, and come on, let's be so for real. Everybody lives differently in their own homes. So weird for me to think about the fact that they were putting these houses together. And like I said, they're happening for both single males and single females. I would love to hear, especially women, what was your experience through this? Okay. Um, but that was again just one way that they would help people continue to pay rent. Another thing that they encouraged was people to live back home. They would constantly try to tell me to go back home and live with my mom. Truth be told, living with my mother is a fucking nightmare, and I spend way too much time with my mom at their encouragement than I really should have. Truthfully, I should have cut my mother off long before I actually did. If you guys don't know, I have been no contact with my mother for going on, I think, 4 years now. 4 years has been truthfully amazing. And we can get into that conversation at a later time. But either way, that was encouraged. Another thing that was actually heavily praised was people who were living out of their cars. I can remember Kate's coming out. If you guys aren't familiar, Kate was our communication system where it was like a voicemail. We would send up voicemails to our upline. They would pass down voicemails that were sent by other people. And there was these brothers. I want to say they were brothers. They were living out of their car, and they were like going to the gym to shower, and they were being praised because their parents kicked them out because they were building the business. I'm sorry. In what other area of life are you being praised for your parents kicking you out because of the business that you're building because they're stealing your dream? Now, obviously, there are situations where parents are not supportive of their children's lifestyles, and that's a whole different situation. I, of course, do not condone that, right? There's a lot of different LGBTQ plus youth who are at risk by coming out with their families, and that is a whole different conversation. But I just want to preface that that is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about families who said, hey, you're building the Amway business, fine, but you can live on your own while you do that. But your parents are just stealing your dream. What are you talking about? My parents are stealing my dream. Literally, no one says that. Like, my dad is one of the number one supportive people for me. And if I get a job that he views as like really good or even negative, like there's no such thing as like a bad job, my dad would be supportive that I'm putting money on the table for my kids, that I am here supporting my children. Any job is a good job as far as he's concerned. I've always been taught to work, right? So crazy that my dad would be very against the Amway Corporation because he knows that it's not going to yield any sort of positive investments for me. I'm not going to see a profit. But I, of course, didn't listen. Either way, though, like the way that they viewed a mortgage was just so negative that, again, they're going as far as putting people together in homes. So that way they're not paying a mortgage. And they would also, again, like I said, the other examples, but it's really interesting the way that they would talk about how mortgages are bad, but throwing all of your money into this business is good. So I have here a little bit of a rundown of how a mortgage could potentially be better than the situation. I am not an expert in money. Okay. This could all be wrong for all I know. From my understanding, it's the best that I could come up with the scenario because I have to explain that I don't know exactly how the Amway Corporation's business model works. Most people don't know how their budget model works. I don't. Most people I know don't. So, from what I can remember when I was involved, this is kind of the way that they would talk about it, right? They would say, you're putting all of your money into your business. That is going to yield an investment, or I'm sorry, a return of your investment within 2 to 5 years. Okay. That's not realistic for anybody. Okay. So, you're spending like 600 bucks a month, right? And you're getting, if it's just you on your $600 a month, which I believe is 200 PV, you're only getting 3% back. So what is that? 18 bucks. You're getting $18 back for every $600 you spend. Okay. So let's say that you do this for the entire year. It's just you and your business buying your ditto faithfully, mind you, which it's honest to God, that's most of the situations where people are just by themselves. They can't recruit other people to stay in, right? Or even just your first year of business. So for the entire year, you're spending about what, $7,200 and getting back $215, $216. Okay. This is again just bare bones basic information here. I'm not going into specifics. This is just from what I can remember I was spending and the requirements that they were giving us based on the business overview plan through the Amway Corporation. Um, so then, okay, let's say you've recruited two people. Okay, so it's yourself and two other people. You are then still spending your $7,200, but because you have those two extra people, you're getting a higher percentage. So you're going to get 700, or I'm sorry, $648 back instead. Okay. But that's if they do not miss a single ditto. Okay. They have to be consistent day one every single month. That's not, most people don't experience that. Okay. Not only that, so let's say you get yourself an Eagle ship. That is you and six people. Okay. And they're all doing 200 PV faithfully every single month. Okay. You're still spending money. You're spending your $7,200 a year. You're getting a higher percentage back. You're still getting less than $1,000. Okay. So let's talk about the reality of it. This is not profit for a business. This is a rebate check. Okay. You're not getting the amount of money that you think that you're going to get. Okay. Because realistically, life is not perfect like that. Nobody is going to be spending the same $600 every single month on the first of the month faithfully, because people lose their jobs, they get sick, they get hurt, they miss work. Like, come on, it's not a sustainable business model. Okay. So let's say you finally get to that platinum level and you actually get that 12%, or I'm sorry, that 25% back. You will still have spent more throughout that time on the business products than you will get back in profit, because you're still not including the tickets that you're buying for functions. You're not including the gas expenses to get to these functions, the coffee that you have to spend every time you sit down with somebody. And sure, they're like, oh, well, you can write it off. Well, that's a whole different conversation, but it's not the way that they tell you it is. I will promise you that. And again, I'm not by any means a tax expert or an accountant, but again, this is just my basic information as a layman here. And I'm just reaching, I want to reach people who are like me, who heard these things, but also need to understand it doesn't work the way that they're telling us, like at all. Um, Again, you're going to be throwing all of your money away. How many years do you think? I mean, I'm asking because I don't really know, but I would imagine you would have to be a platinum receiving this consistent money for years before you finally break even to how much you had to spend in order to get that platinum ship. Because one thing that they were telling us to do was continue upping our PV as we raised pin levels. So they would say once you get to a an Eagle ship, you're getting that, what they said was $1,000 back. I don't think it was that amount back, but let's say you were. They would say, okay, well now you have this $1,000 to put back into your business. You're then raising your amount that you're spending to that $1,000. So you're still spending your $7,200, but now because your rebate check has gone up to $1,000, well, now you're going to put that money back into your ditto. So you're spending even more. Like it would take an insane amount of time for you to actually break even with how much money you're spending. It's crazy to me, which is interesting because then in like late 2019, early 2020, focus on sales, but they're not. They're still telling people the same business model that they quote have been for several years, right? Spend all your money into your business and you will get all that money back tenfold because you're doing the right thing. And I can remember, right, back in 2016, they would hold incentives for us. These like parties where we got to go and do things. I remember for me, it was we got to do like a Christmas ugly sweater party. And then it would be another type of party. And then for that, they would do like incentive runs. So like the third incentive would be something pretty big. And for me, when I was there, it was this like masquerade ball party where we got to like dress up and in black and white. This was just before the gemstones had originally gone diamond, and it was a big deal. You wanted to be there, right? So what were the criteria to be at these different incentives? Number one was you had to have your ditto in on day one, and it had to be the amount that you were specified. So a single person was meant to spend 200 PV, which is roughly $600. Obviously, with inflation, it's higher now, but back then it was $600. And a couple had to spend 300 PV, which is $900. Yeah. So it's like a 3-to-1 ratio. So $600 for a single, about $900 to $1,000 for a couple. And then they would obviously say, hey, you have to talk to X amount of people, you have to drop the message, whatever, right? And they would create FOMO intentionally. Like I can remember my upline's son. If you don't remember a lot of my story, my upline's son was sponsored or was sponsored before and would then sponsor his parents. He would say specifically, take as many pictures as you can, post them everywhere, make people wish that they were here. And if you weren't there, you felt like off. You felt like sad that you weren't there. There's one incentive that I can remember not going to, and I was beyond like mad, like so upset that I didn't get to go to this, but it was called Heart to Heart. It was where the crown lady had all the higher gemstones, including my upper gemstones, all on the private jet that they had. And they would go around and they would talk to the women about all the women's products and yada, yada, right? Well, my upline, bless her soul, I love Jess so much. Her and Robert had just gotten married. And so she, by default, got to go to this party. And I was sad because I was a single mom working a full time job and doing delivery apps on the side. And I still, because I also had to pay for childcare as well, I could not afford to do 300 PV in 1 month. There's no way I was going to be able to, as a single mom, pay $900. And I didn't get to go. They would also send out like different messages from other single women who were not mothers at all, who were able to, they're like, oh, she's doing what she needs to be able to go and attend the party. Good for her. And it's like, okay, but so and so doesn't have a kid. Like, why am I being compared to this person who has a totally different life circumstance? Okay, that's crazy and that's not fair. But all that being said, that was kind of a way for them to get us to spend more money. How are they teaching you guys how to do sales? Like, do you guys actually have meetings about the products? Like, in what way has this become sales focused? Please, please tell me. I would love to know. Another thing that has changed since that time is their social media presence. And this one has gotten to me so much because it makes me like actually pissed off to think about it. Again, I was in 2016 to 2019. Social media was like off limits. They would not allow us on social media. They wouldn't allow us to go on there to recruit, let alone to even try to make a sale. Like we were told all of your time needs to be forward facing. You need to talk to people in person. Social media is a waste of your time. You're not going to be doing anything. Don't even bother. I was off social media for like 2 straight years. Like I go back on to try to look for my memories on like Facebook, and there's just a year missing from that. And that still breaks my heart because there was so much going on in my life at the time that I wish I would have captured. I mean, I still have photos in my phone, but not nearly as many. Like I was not taking pictures of my child, which I was a single mom to one child at the time, and life was just very different back then. And it really makes me sad. Like I really took that much time that I'll never get back off of my life. Um, but social media totally off the table. It's interesting now because as we saw in like late 2024, early 2025, we had seen the club owner's now ex-wife being basically a social media influencer. I called this lady out on TikTok because she was sharing her meal subscription. She had a link to her Amazon storefront, which most of the time is giving a percentage of that money that, like, if people go to their Amazon storefront, they buy that, then the person gets like a commission. I don't know if that's the case. I have no idea if she ever actually had sponsors. Now, hear me out. If she would have gone the social media route, given up the business altogether, I would have had so much more respect for her. I think she could be an influencer. I think she has that aesthetic. I think she lives that lifestyle. I think that she could totally give up this business and live successfully as an influencer. But no, she decided to stay. Good for you, I guess. I don't know. It's really frustrating to see because during that time, as well, we started to see an increase in social media from other people. It's funny that I'm looking on social media now and I get screenshots like all the time. And hear me out. If you are listening to this and you're a person who has me blocked, just so you know, I get screenshots. I have sources. You are not safe from me. Okay. Yeah, I will find out. But no, I mean, for real, like, for example, the retirement parties that I went to, the the Emerald guy that I had and his wife, who was a real estate agent that we later found out owned a bikini coffee bar. If you know, you know. They are now posting so much on their social media about their remodeling business. I see nothing in regards to them and their Amway business or worldwide or even speaking engagements. Like these people have totally shifted their social media presence to we are owners of this remodeling business. While their downline are out here advertising their Amway products, trying to gather what in my opinion, looks like they're trying to gather sales. So while you're over here advertising your actual real business, your struggling downline is over here trying to sell excess on Instagram. What are you talking about? I would love to know what it is that is going on to justify this from happening. Like these people either have to be on their way out or they are absolutely preaching to their downline that they've reached this level of success. They're allowed to do that. I have no idea, but it just makes me really sad. And just speaking to these people who are now utilizing their social media platform to advertise their businesses, pretty much every person whose retirement party that I went to is now back to full time employment. As we had heard from Nandi, the bald Emerald that we shared in common, he was back to work a couple of years ago and was saying that that was his way to go and recruit people. That's crazy because I remember him being so excited and his kids being like, oh, this many days until my dad is free, blah, blah, blah. Also, same with the gemstone who is, that I was just speaking about, that his wife was the coffee bar owner, which funny enough, they're like, oh, she owned a coffee shop. She owned a bikini coffee shop, which again, I don't judge that. I'm sure she was a bad bitch doing this, but that's technically sex work. So the fact that she's now preaching modesty and then totally denying the fact that she owned that type of coffee shop, whatever, not my business. I was at her husband's retirement party. I found pictures of me and a video of me and my child saying like, hey, we're so proud of you. We're so grateful for you, blah, blah, blah. And this guy has been back to work for years. It is funny, but it's not only the fact that these people are back to work. Pretty much all of the people who I saw quote retire are all back to work. Either they're back to work forward facing on their social media, or they've left the business altogether. Obviously, I hope it's the latter of the two, but I mean, I'll never know unless you reach out. Please reach out. I would love to hear from you. Really, really, I would. But not only that, I'm also seeing their downline like advertising their different small businesses, like their photography businesses or balloon making, like the balloon arch businesses, which is honestly great. I'm so happy for these people. This is not me criticizing them. I just want to know what they're telling their downline. How can you justify saying that your business through the Amway Corporation, through Worldwide Group, is not enough? Because for so many years, they would always tell us if we had a business, they would encourage us to sell it. I remember my upline. Again, it's a weird situation, but their son, right? His wife, her parents finally came around and they owned, from what I understood, to be a very successful cleaning business out of a different part of Oregon. And they were encouraged to sell. Now, I hope they never did sell. I have no clue if they ever did. Obviously, I hope that they didn't. But they would always say, don't have a back door, don't have a backup plan, like have all of your eggs in this one basket. Like your job is your part-time gig. Your main focus is your business and you don't want to be double-minded. And now the shift has been totally made to, hey, it's okay to have outside businesses. In fact, I wonder if it's encouraged, right? I have no idea. If you're out there and please, please tell me. It's just frustrating, to see, you know, just how many different changes have been made. Like I said, if you have been around at any period of time, please reach out. I would be so happy to talk to you and help you share your story. Major shout out, by the way, for the very first time I had a cross line that I actually knew while I was in the business reach out to me. I'm stoked that I had an opportunity to finally talk to someone who kind of gave some closure in some different areas, but a major shout out to that person. Honestly, I wish most of those people well. If you reach out, we don't even have to talk about your time in Worldwide. I just want to know that you're doing well, with the exception of Robert. Robert, you can go fuck yourself. As always, I literally wish that you step on a Lego every fucking day. Fuck you. It's just crazy to me, the things that they're being, preachy about in this business. And then once again, we'll say rules for thee, but not for me. That's how they live their lives. Good old Christian values. Am I right? I don't know. Anyways, that's all I really wanted to talk to you guys about today. I've kind of gone on a big rant, and you guys, I very much enjoyed spilling this tea, but believe me, I have plenty more. I am so excited, you guys. Please follow me on YouTube, Instagram have all been changed to at Steap Podcast. And you can still reach me at my email, DANI at xsandtpodcast.com. But again, stay tuned for when that email address will change fully. And you guys can catch me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere else your podcasts are heard. You guys, will catch you guys in the next episode.